Right, we are now live in theory. Hello, good evening, and welcome to another Broken Binding live interview. My name's Stephen Aaron, and today I'm talking to David Wragg, the author of The Articles of Faith, which is The Blackhawks. See, I'm prepared. The Righteous, which completes the duology. And we're here today because Broken Binding are producing special editions of Tales of the Plains, which begins with The Hunters, which I have a copy of. This is a regular version, you noticed, no sprayed edges, just a regular old hardback. Company of the Wolf and the Iron
Road.
I nearly had it. An Iron Road. That completes the trilogy. And the third book came out this year as well, I believe.
The third book is actually out, full release, September the 11th.
There you go. You see?
Yeah, it's now about a month away. The second one is out in paperback as of, I'm going to say, last month.
Yeah.
There's about a sort of a year lag between hardback and paperback. And then what's happened is instead of it being a release every 12 months, we've done a release every 13 months. Again, another one of these little publishing quirks.
But this is obviously just a regular hardback. The special edition, there's a link down below where you can order now. They're on general sale. You can order the Tales of the Plains trilogy, which has the kind of artwork across all three books. We should say you don't have to have read the Articles of Faith duology, this series, to read Tales of the Plains. If you do, great. You'll get some extra Easter eggs, perhaps. But you've written it so that it's standalone. Is that right?
Yes, exactly that. And more than that, each one of the books of Tales of the Plains, with the exception of the last one, can be read on its own. So you can read The Hunters and you will have a start, middle, and end. And you can read Company of the Wolf and you will have a start, middle, and end. And it happens to share the main characters, the two central protagonists. By the time we get to the Iron Road, because it is the concluding part of the trilogy, it would be useful to have read the previous two.
It's expected on a trilogy. I would say it is expected to have read the previous two books.
There is a little. There's a previously on. There's a recap. There's a synopsis at the beginning of the third book, which there isn't in the second one, and mysteriously isn't in the first either. So, if you were coming in completely cold or hadn't, read anything at all, you would at least have a primer on who the characters were and how they know each other, which is about the best we can hope for. But that is a bit of a change from my first series, which was I always described it as one story split across two books. Other people have referred to the ending of the first book as a monstrous and unforgivable cliffhanger, but
you're teasing them to read on. Surely that's the point.
That was my goal. Books. And in my defense, I had written both of those books already before the first one was out. I had written the draft of the second book.
There you go.
Unfortunately, then COVID hit and publishing went, and that was sort of the end of that. So instead of book one coming out and then book two being right behind it, a period of nearly 2 years followed.
Yes,
we can laugh about it now.
But COVID was a weird and scary time that we all want to kind of forget and not talk about.
Yeah. So that wasn't optimal for the release schedule of the first series. This time, though, we have with our 13 months, what's the term we use, cadence, that has gone way better. All the books more or less on time. We've had a couple of headaches with audiobooks. So last year, the audio had a 2-month lag. This year, it looks like the same thing's going to happen again. The audio is going to be 2 months behind the hardback and ebook release. Again, it's a thing that seems to happen. I will occasionally be notified. This thing, the audio is going to be 2 months, or we could change narrator for book 3 possibly. Like, maybe not.
Yeah, consistency I think is better with an audio narrator for a series.
It's a bit like we could change the cover design partway through the series and change the height of the books. Maybe are you in favour of that?
Oh, that drives me mad. We're not the same. The series is not the same on a shelf. Well, the series goes on so long, they start changing the covers, and they have to let's not do that. So tell me who are the Hunters, and tell people about the beginning of the trilogy, The Hunters?
Well, yeah, going all the way back then to the inception of this trilogy, it was initially I wanted to do something different. At the end of Articles of Faith, I had done my take on classic swords but no sorcery fantasy that contained, grizzled veterans and idealistic young farm boys going on quests that then end up with, great conspiracies against the people and enormous armies meeting on a plane and, explosions and decapitations and just all of the stuff that we sign up for, all the normal, all the good things, all the best things. And having done that, and then being sort of, so what's the next series? What are you planning? Blah, blah, blah. I wanted to do something that was a real departure. And part of that was smaller stories, smaller in scope, smaller in cast, and smaller in time frame as well, rather than covering like an epic journey that takes months or even years. I think The Hunters unfolds over the course of about 3 days.
It's pretty quick, feels very quick.
And it is about a character called Ree, who is a woman of a certain age. I think she's sort of early 40s at the beginning of The Hunters. And she has been through a lot and has decided that she is going to move to the absolute arse end of nowhere to start a new quiet life and live out her days. And in tow is her niece Giovanni, who is 12 and who is an absolute pain in the arse. Now, a lot of people have asked me, Dave, do you have kids? And I say, yes, why do you ask? Are your kids the most annoying people in the world? And like, well, I mean, come on, look who
I've met everybody in the world, but if I was to guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's no more than top 10.
Yeah, easy. Top 10, top 20.
So, I mean, I've had the occasional reviewer say, hey, Giovanni's a profoundly irritating character. But ultimately, that's because Giovanni is 12 and Giovanni is a fantasy protagonist, and Giovanni is being kept by her aunt out of the way as it is physically possible to be in this world, to avoid trouble, to avoid, any number of other things. So we're having a quiet and sort of peaceful life in a corner.
Because kids love having a quiet life with nothing to do and nowhere to go. That's just what they crave at a young age, where they want to just sit around. Especially
if they have a natural inclination towards exploring and pushing boundaries and all the rest of it. So, funnily enough, no, my elder child now is pretty much the age that Giovanni is at the beginning of the book. And I do occasionally sort of go, I mean, they're not the same. They're not the same. But there are some parallels. So the question of like, who are the hunters? Well, that's what I like about it. So obviously, he says, as if everyone got the memo on this, the title is a nod to the classic Western, The Searchers, which was a book by Alan LeMay before it was a John Wayne film, and has a very different ending in the film. Trivia.
Spoilers.
So yeah,
spoilers.
I did quite a lot of research, because the other thing I wanted to do, small scale, take characters, put them out of the way, make their peril not about the fate of nations and, grand conspiracies, but just, personal stakes of, well, ultimately, someone, it turns out, is after Giovanni. She doesn't know why. Ree maybe knows why, but isn't necessarily saying anything. And then there's also somebody else who also seems to be after Giovanni. So the hunters are, in fact, possibly two different groups who are suddenly very, very interested in this 12-year-old, who have come very long ways in order to get to know her, possibly.
Possibly for other reasons, rather than just getting to know a 12-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds a bit sinister, doesn't it?
It does almost sound like they're up to no good, possibly causing trouble in her neighborhood, I would suggest.
In the neighborhood, absolutely. And when someone is a trouble magnet in general, this just applies a sort of force multiplier to the whole thing. And yeah, things escalate, as we like to say in the business. So what we then end up with is essentially a chase across the desert, across the sort of salt plains, across grassland, through canyons and mines, and and stuff explodes, because although there's no magic in this series, there's no magic in the world that I created, which is the same world that we had for the original series. And I did that because, again, you can check your reference notes on this one. I am a tittering fool who thought it would be ever so funny to write fantasy with no magical monsters in it. What are the two things you think of? Sort of dragons and magic swords. Like, no, none of them. No wizards, no mythical creatures. Wouldn't it be funny if you did fantasy that was just like some blokes in a field? Well, guess what?
Yeah.
So, here we are.
Cheers Book Club. Hello. So
the end result was, a magicless world where we had to invent special effects. And fortunately, in the back half of Articles of Faith, someone brought gunpowder into play. Or, an in-world analog for it. And there's plenty of that around now, because there's a 13-year lag between the end of The Righteous and the beginning of The Hunters. So do not worry, plenty of shit blows up.
The setting, as you mentioned, based on like the searches, but also even the covers kind of hint at it, the kind of rustic edge of the world vibe. You said they're traveling to the middle of nowhere. It does have that Western feel. It does have the kind of, it reminds me of Red Country by Joe Abercrombie, that there are these people digging out a quiet life. I
haven't read.
No, it's good in some ways, because people are saying, "Oh, you might," but it's the same mold of a quiet story in the edge of the world where people are just trying to live a quiet life and possibly get away from other things as is happening with them. So, tell me a bit more about the setting, because it's not just cut from a straight Western. There's more to it.
No. So it is the world that I originally looked to base. Oh, again, because I'm a gibbering moron who wants to subvert everything. Instead of just going, this is Arthurian England, or this is, medieval France, I decided to push sort of further east and go, I'm going to use as the base of my setting in terms of, sort of latitude, longitude, topology, various sort of geographical outlook, an inverted Transcaucasia. So Georgia and Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, but flipped on its head to make it Southern Hemisphere. So that is essentially my world map that I then place things in, meaning the further north you go, the hotter it gets, the further south you go, the colder it gets, because we're now Southern Hemisphere. So what I then found was the various events of the second book end up at a place called Arawan, which sits at the sort of northern extreme of the lands that we've looked at so far. On the border of this expanse, this Serican expanse, it's called. Believe it or not, I named it before I then watched The Expanse. Very different. So this, if you like, was sort of gateway city, and then there's this huge area of uncharted territory beyond it. And I realized that if you wanted someone who was going to go off into the distance, they were going to keep going in that direction. And that essentially maps, going back to the real world, as going into Persia. It is Iran. It is the Persian desert. And I thought, well, I've lifted a few sort of Persian trappings for Serica already. So why don't we take it to the extreme and let's look at sort of desert cultures and, how people live in extreme areas of temperature and, salt deserts and dead lakes and all that kind of thing. And so one of the earliest, I think when Giovanni makes an appearance, she's inside a wind tower, a kunat, which is, one of the things that they will build to funnel air as it comes in and cool it down into a basement to help, people live underground in a nice, cool thing. And it's the sort of thing like you would not get that in a standard Western fantasy, a fantasy Western or a Western fantasy. And and the rest of it's down to the sort of the background. It's trees and shrubs. It's the animals that are there, and it's all these little sort of details that I spent a lot of time on the Encyclopedia Iranica. Obviously, the culture is completely different. We're not at like unlike say someone who has done a lot of research on the period and is recreating a historical fantasy Persia.
Who would do that?
Imagine someone doing that.
That's ridiculous. I don't know anybody who'd want to do that. That's insane amount of research. I mean, no one would be crazy attempt that.
Yeah. And then at the other end of that scale, you've got some guy going persimmon, dates, apricots, cherries. Yep. Check. They all grow there. Good. What do you need to import? Like, where you get all your salt? Of course, you get your salt from the desert. Cool. And just sort of tick, down we go. And it comes under the heading of world building, but it allowed me to go, I'm doing another fantasy, but I don't have to cover the same old ground. I can give it that Western feel, and crucially, we can build a world. I mean, I made a sort of a bullet point list for my agent early on when I was talking to him about it before I really started writing anything. And I said, well, what defines a Western in that kind of cowboy and Indian sense? And it's essentially a distance from centralized authority. It is about its frontier where we make our own law, where there is danger lurking in the fringes, where people can come from anywhere to start again, but with always that unstated question of like, what were you before? And the idea, because they're all in the same boat, like the kind of what happened to you, man. It's a bit like, being in prison. Nobody asks like, what are you in for? Or did you do it? The assumption is, cool, everyone in here is innocent, but we don't talk about that. We're just living our lives in theory. I mean, I obviously know lots about prison. However,
sure.
in this case, it was the kind of the ethos, the trappings, the feeling of we are miles from what you would recognize as a state. And instead, what you have is a local power struggle. You have state-like actors, which of course brings us to the Miners' Guild. And the Miners' Guild are the closest thing that you have to an organized sort of central, like local government, for want of a better term. But they are not your friend. I mean, as much as local government can never be your friend, but they are quasi-state. They are not state. And that is a much bigger theme as the series goes on. So the final book is basically, without wishing to give too much away, it is about what happens if you have something which resembles a state, which looks like government, but is not, for the people, by the people, of the people, or even a fantasy version of it. You say what you like about kings. Some of them did take the divine right,
What do kings ever do for us?
Well, exactly. There did exist monarchs who understood noblesse oblige meant, you're supposed to look out for people, right? They're that kind of, these are your subjects. Now, obviously there were far more dickheads, and, it's very easy for people to go, well, I'm king now, so no.
Do what I want.
Exactly, as history shows. But the notion of the good king is someone who can do things for their subjects. And then there's Henry V, who just kept going to war. Great at war, shit at king. But leaving all that in a big box marked, the difficulties of running a state in the pre-modern era.
Yep.
If you have something which performs the role of a state, but is in essence a parasite, like a sort of, oh God, no, I've got all kinds of unpleasant imagery. I'll just leave it at parasite.
Yeah.
You might think you are getting a sort of fair shake of things, but over time, the parasite swells and everything else becomes sort of shriveled away. And it's that breaking point, that tension, which is the driving conflict of the third book. It is, if the guild becomes so massive that it threatens to become the state, but the guild is the capricious whims of its private owners. And without wishing to draw too many parallels to reality.
What? Between large organizations that in self-titled individuals who retain all power and money, want to do whatever they want outside the rules of society.
That,
I can't think of anything.
Things like space flight or satellite communications where like
Cars.
one guy can just go, no, I don't want to do it anymore. And suddenly a thing that an entire nation or indeed series of nations relies on is whisked away. And I try not to hit the old analogy button too hard, but there are elements of this. So to go all the way back to the Hunters, there was a sort of a seed in there from the beginning, which is like the Miners Guild. In the classical Western stories, it's usually the big ranchers. It's the sort of the ones that move the cattle, and then all the people have built their little homesteads and things, and then find that their fields are just being like gradually like noop, 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 and their fence is moving, because the ranchers keep expanding their land because they need more land for all the cattle, and then the classic, but the farmsteads had 10 head of cattle, and when they come back, they've got 8 head of cattle because 2 of them have been taken away. And like, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So that kind of sense of without centralized law enforcement, without there being a higher power that you can appeal to, you're on your own. What are you going to do? And for most people, it's go, okay. But what if you do until you've got nothing left? Next, well, I would say it's Steve is the one who has done the next level research.
We don't want to talk about that. The other thing is, Book of Wheels says we can't wait to read the 3rd book and the TBB editions. Yes, we're looking forward to. Here's an easier question, perhaps, to both of us. Which of your characters would be the worst to be stuck in a Zoom call with?
Oh my God. Well, So the trouble is, and this has come up a number of times before, like generally when you create characters to serve a role in a narrative, they tend towards the abrasive, because, or at least the ones I create do, because ultimately you want tension, and tension is conflict, and conflict is difference, and the notion that people who largely believe the same thing and want the same thing, if they all just agree, then you don't really have a story.
Not much conflict. Yes, if everyone just gets along. That's like the late great Christopher Priest once, when I met him at an event in France, and we were chatting about being on panels and stuff, and he said, they ask a question and they move down the line, and he said, if I was last, or if I was second or third, whatever someone said and they answered it, even if I agreed, I would always disagree with the question and give a difficult answer, give the opposite answer, just to make it more interesting. Because if someone says, do you think this is a good idea? Yes. No. What do you mean? You create conversation and you create conflict. Whereas if you all say yes, then there's no story, there's no conflict, there's no thing. But the worst to be stuck in a Zoom call with.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is a roundabout way of saying that all of mine would be bad. But they're all bad.
All of them.
Every single one of them would be bad. And it's really just a case of saying which would be the actual worst. And I'm going to discount villains from this, because all of the villains are just inveterate assholes anyway.
True. Yeah.
I think from the second book, the 2 worst characters you could possibly be lumbered with would be Henry, the huntsman, who lives in the woods and would not say a bloody thing. He would not turn his camera on. He would not even acknowledge that he was on the call. And if you asked him a direct question, you would probably get a 1-word answer. So if you actually wanted to get anything like, a productive meeting with some consensus, he would be an absolute nightmare. And at the other end of the scale, Inai Menitas, who you would have to continually mute him because he would just keep talking.
Yeah, fair enough. But me, I think any of the Khans would be really annoying to have because they just demand you do everything for them and expect you to obey them, and just stand around like you expect me to. What?
Join? They'd be the ones sending the bloody AI assistant, wouldn't they?
There's an AI bot in it. Well, there's an early character that from one of my early books called Monroe, who seems really fun, but I suspect if you actually had to spend time with them, they'd just be so annoying. And after a while, you'd be like, how long's the Zoom call? Can we cut this a bit short? Can we wrap this up in 20 minutes? You'll be there for 45 minutes going.
I had this conversation with RJ Barker, I think possibly on a Writeopolis, about the characters that you enjoy the most in your fiction are probably the ones you would least want to have to deal with in real life. The classic example, like, can you imagine working in the same police department as Bosch? Like, when you are constantly having to deal with the aftermath of his like rule breaking, his lack of due process, his like constant dereliction and inability to follow orders. Like, I've sent Bosch home with then he won't like sound of an explosion. God. Someone's gonna have to pay for this
day off. What's happened? Bosch has been out the park and killed 7 people.
Yeah.
I love Bosch, by the way. I'm very excited.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
New series of Ballard. I rinsed that in like a week.
Oh, yeah. I haven't watched it. I don't know. I'm still a bit upset at the way Bosch Legacy was finished when it wasn't finished.
But let's just say there's no spoilers, but there's things in Ballard you will enjoy.
Oh, okay. I'm told.
Plant that seed. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Bosch Legacy or Ballard or any of the works of Michael Connolly, who's an excellent writer, by the way.
Yeah.
Love his books. So talked a little bit about Giovanni, and we talked a little bit about the Hunters. And it's frontier story, edge of the world. Rhee's a very mysterious woman. What can you say about her without giving too much away?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's always the challenge, but without giving a lot away, you would draw the conclusion that, based largely on her unwillingness to say anything about her history and the fact that, she has some interesting scars and seems to know her way around a crossbow and how to ride a horse and carries a sword around with her a lot that seems to be quite valuable and that Giovanni doesn't think she can use, but maybe she can. Rhee has seen some shit. That would be the conclusion that you could draw.
She's lived a life for sure. Before.
Yes, yeah. And what Giovanni becomes increasingly convinced is that whenever Rhee, when pressed, describes herself as a former diplomat, is that Giovanni is of the opinion that diplomat, everyone knows diplomat means spy. So it's like her irrefutable logic. Anytime anyone says diplomat, everyone knows diplomat means spy. So she becomes convinced that Rhee was some kind of spy. But the true nature of her history is revealed sort of in chunks as, you get some of it in the Hunters, you get a bit more in Company of the Wolf, and then you get the rest in the Iron Road. You get the sort of the big chunk. And it does also include some ties back to the first series as well, for anyone who has read that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you don't need to have read them. It's more like if you just want to get the extra credit.
Okay. Thanks for answering the question. Have a good chat, comment on new editions. Well, thanks very much. You're welcome.
You're most welcome. Yeah.
Toby Keller says Archer would either be the best or the worst girl ever. Does it mean Archer?
Yeah.
Who's Archer?
Yeah, are you not familiar with Archer?
Do you mean but your character though? This is your character. Well,
no, I'm assuming this is Archer, the
TV
from the animated series. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I was thinking, wait, have I missed a character in your books called Archer? Yeah, the animated TV Archer thing. Yeah.
And Henry is technically an Archer, so again, like yes, he would be dreadful. Archer himself would be dreadful. Oh, I see. Toby Gallagher's corrected with Henry. Okay, Henry the Archer. Well, you know what? Archer would be a nightmare to work with as well. Yes, and Henry, as stated, would be an absolute misery guts on a Zoom call and refuse to join in with anything. Oh God, can you imagine trying to do it like a team building event with him? No, that'll be it the whole way through. Not doing it.
It's not much of a spoiler, but in the first book there are some siblings. I think the one who talks an awful lot, the brother, would be incredibly annoying as well, because
yes.
He never shut up, and you'd be like a 20-minute Zoom call would be 3 hours, and you'd be like, I just want to go home. I was supposed to be in.
Just got to pick the kids up.
I've got to pick them up. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for some reason, I continually write characters who are really, really wordy. Um, I don't know what it is. But
You're
first,
stretching yourself as a creator. You're looking for something that isn't the essence of you, and you're reaching beyond the known. That's what we do as writers. We don't write what
yeah,
we know.
yeah, that's certainly one thing I definitely
Annoying,
don't
wordy
do.
people. Who would write such
Yes,
characters? I mean,
people who can't shut up and never get to the point. It's a mystery. So Aki, indeed, from the Hunters, is a self-described warrior poet,
yes.
who is obsessed with, demonstrating the true breadth and depth of his talent, to pretty much the world at large. And yeah, it does make him kind of annoying to be around.
He has an interesting philosophy on life, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
That's,
And given so, when it comes to Company of the Wolf, we have moved location. So it's Rhea and Giovanni
yes.
have moved on. So there are no characters in common apart from those two between book 1 and book 2, which is why, again, I maintain you can read it standalone if you wish.
Yeah.
But that's why I had to then invent Manitas, because I needed another character to sit there and just be the flapping jaw the whole way through. I mean, if anything, he is wordier than Aki, in terms of the sheer quantity of circumlocution that man is capable of. And there are words in there that, like, the word spell checker goes, "That's not a word." I'm like, "Oh, a word? Yes, it is."
I'll consult Oxford Dictionary, and I think you'll find it is.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, that's not a word that a human would use. Like, well, yeah, shut up, word.
Yes, but the stories, its movie location, it's quite different to the Hunters. Can you talk about the middle book at all? Without, I know you say it's standalone, but
I think so. Largely because a lot of the theme, although, I mean, book 1 is essentially a chase across a desert. It's a sort of chase. I mean, you know how Fury Road is across the desert and then U-turn and then back across the desert.
It's driving up the road, turning around, driving back.
Yeah,
that's Fury Road. I have to shortcut the film. That's it.
It is. I mean, I'm
going for a drive to the shop. Oh, I forgot my keys. Drive back. Get the keys.
Back we go.
Yep.
So in your bag for life as well.
Yeah. Back again. Yep.
With the Hunters, it's more of a sort of, triangle. I have mapped the route out in my little sort of my notes, so it's not just there and back, but it is effectively a group of people converging on a thing, and the thing then going, "Oh no," and running off, and then being pursued by a constantly sort of rotating cast of hunters. Believe it or not, again, the clue is in the name. So. I know you shouldn't look at reviews, but I did see a complaint recently from someone saying, like, I don't get it. They weren't hunting anything. It should be called The Hunted, not The Hunters. Like, do you get that? It's fine. No, never mind. Doesn't matter.
I had someone say, I read the whole book, The Julius Blossom, and I never found the tree, and I thought it was some kind of magic sword. There wasn't one. Why is it called that? I don't get it. Spin on.
Never mind.
But so going back briefly, the Hunters, as well as it's them being hunted, it is a story of discovery, because it's about Giovanni finding out more about herself, her origins, why, because you said people are after her, and in the course of the story, it's not a spoiler to say, as you would expect, you find out a bit more about her, why they're after a 12-year-old. Like, she's kind of done anything, so clearly there's something else going on. It's all about,
ironically, she probably could have done, but yeah, exactly that.
There is the notion of discovery of who she really is, why she's living on the edge of the world in the middle of nowhere, what it's all about. That's the kind of main theme. So what's the second book?
There are layers of hunting. So one of the you may remember, one of the things I wanted was that notion of, can you ever really get away? Like, can you get to somewhere where you can just be left the hell alone? And obviously that kind of that's the setup for the Hunters, and then the answer is revealed to me. No, not if you've left the trail long enough, stuff's going to follow you. So I wanted to re-examine that. I wanted to go into a kind of is it possible to live a life of like blameless peace in an out of the way place, and for there to be no trade-off, for there to be like nothing that is compromised by an attitude of essentially passivity or pacifism? So that was the setup. What I like the idea of was, if you're thinking westerns, like the Searchers being, obviously in the Searchers they are chasing after a kidnapped girl, and the whole thing's got massively racist undertones, but I mean overtones. Think about classic westerns. What else have you got? Well, the next one that will come up sort of pretty soon is the Magnificent Seven, which, as we all know, is just seven samurai with different hats. So that was the model I had in my head: villagers versus bandits. But what if the villagers would not or could not fight back? Not because they lack the physical capability, or they lack the numbers, or they lack the equipment, but because their entire ethos was, we should not fight, we must not fight. And what if the bandits were not necessarily evil, but were just subject to misaligned incentives, for want of a better term? So again, it's not too much of a spoiler to say that Rhea and Giovanni stumble over this village that is absolutely in the arse end of nowhere. It's not on any map, and they're very, very friendly people, but they're a bit weird. And then it turns out that across the valley from them is a mercenary camp, and officially the mercenaries are there to protect the village. But what seems to have happened is that the village was initially paying them for a service, and then they were paying them a little bit to be guarded, and then they were paying them a bit more to be sort of supervised, and now they are paying them a lot to be not murdered. And we've basically reached the protection racket scale of things. And Rhea, being Rhea, clocks this immediately and decides it will not stand, because there's X hundred people in the village and there's like 20 guys on the hill, and you cannot just be giving them everything you've got just so they don't come in and stab you with spears. So tell them to bog off, show them a bit of strength. What are they going to do? Interesting question.
Yeah, if their ethos is do no harm.
Indeed. But to use a technical term from there, again, things escalate. And that's essentially where we go from that. But there are twists and turns, and there are complexities to the entire situation, where I've seen Toby's comment. Yes.
Misaligned.
I mean, not all the mercenaries, indeed.
No, not all mercenaries. Yes, misaligned.
But in terms, though, of there exist mercenaries within that camp who believe that they are providing a service, they're being paid to do a service, that they are doing, what is written on the sort of the contract is what they are doing. And there are those who have worked out very quickly that this is a situation we can exploit. And more than that, the only thing preventing us exploiting it is, I don't know, self-control, like a moral compass. So that then becomes a question of character, and a character with a small c rather than or possibly a big C in this case, rather than characters with character, because it really does come down to who is running the show. And if the person running the show has a bit of backbone, a bit of nobility, then maybe this thing can be, could go back to what it should be, or something of that ilk. But if the person who is making the decisions over there has a slightly sort of darker outlook, then things are going to get very nasty. So again, narrative tension. I wonder what happens.
You have to read to find out. So, chapter says your book's always been sharp wit with gripping stakes. How do you balance humor and tension without letting either overpower the narrative? It's a very good question, because I'll say this.
Question.
You won't say, I will. your books you're excellent at dialogue, and you're excellent at funny moments. I'm not saying they're comedy books, but there's tension, and tension creates pressure, and sometimes it comes out as comedy, as humor. People make jokes like, in dark situations, people make jokes just to kind of relieve a bit of pressure.
Well, I've always been struck by, I mean, like the what's it called, the Wipers Times, the humorous newspaper that the Tommies produced in the trenches in World War One. Like the little sort of, they made a funny paper while they were living in the Jeffing trenches. And it's like, if that's not the greatest exponent of gallows humor, and it just goes to show that it is the most human reaction, because you do need to lighten the tone. Like, I know there are books which are sort of portentous from the word go, but even, the things that people will hold up as like the grimmest of grimdark, and whether you're going to go Game of Thrones or Abercrombie or rest, like Abercrombie's obviously shot through with humor. Game of Thrones has gags. Yeah. Stuff that is just grim. Well, you can almost end up down the sort of, well, it's Warhammer 40k, except Warhammer 40k is incredibly subversive. All the Warhammer stuff, again, it's full of gags. So I think it is an obligation to reflect human reactions. And I mean, I heard this, I don't know, on another podcast not that long ago, where somebody said, like, it doesn't really matter how mad what is happening in your narrative is, as long as your characters behave in a believably human way.
Yes.
Because if they're treating this as real and they are reacting the way that humans should to it, your reader will go, oh, okay, by and large. I mean, obviously, some readers won't. We know the ones.
We know who you
are.
But
if your characters are not reacting according to how humans would be, and that doesn't mean they all have to react the same way at all, but, you need to show that sort of the depth of feeling and the behaviors that would result from it. And again, you're telling a story, so you don't necessarily want everyone to just suffer total emotional collapse, which, like, given the stress situations that we put our characters in, the notion of them going, oh, fuck it, and just like coiling up into a ball and refusing to come out, like, okay, possibly that would be the most realistic reaction. But being able to maintain a little bit of humor is crucial, and it doesn't have to be all the characters. And indeed, often it's funnier not to have like a very like if they're not all funny, if someone is very much unfunny, you can derive tremendous humor from that, especially if you've got quick characters, intelligent characters, mouthy characters, like I mentioned earlier, abrasive characters. The ones who'll say things that others wouldn't, because A, it's funny, it's transgressive, but B, you can then get a reaction, even if the reaction is not to react at all. Well, you've shown something about character, like, surely, well, he's not going to let that go. Why wouldn't he let them? So, to address this wonderful question, I mean, the answer in many ways is practice, I think, and natural inclination. I definitely didn't get it right in my early work, because I would continually get feedback that was along the lines of, stop undermining your narrative moments with jokes. Like, you have these incredibly tense moments, or moments of real peril, the rest of it, and then I would put a gag in the narration, or just a funny turn of phrase, or like
someone farts and it robs all the tension from the moment.
But, something like the executioner's axe hanging over them, da 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 da, and then the executioner hadn't even had his lunch, which was hardly fair. And it's like, if you put something in that, you are deflating your own tension. Even if it's your natural inclination, be like, aha, it can be funny. This could be funny. So, like you say, the books are not comic. And I did think originally, I assumed, being like a massive Pratchett fan and having read all kinds of comic fantasy, obviously Douglas Adams, but people like Tom Holt and Robert Rankin and stuff, which was like funny first and genre second. I assumed I was going to write that kind of thing, and my first attempts at writing sort of traveled in that direction, but they weren't funny enough. They're just like, writing proper comedy, again, capital C, is really hard.
Yeah.
And doing it consistently over a book length, like, Jesus, no, I can't do that. and the bulk of our stories out there are not comedy stories, but way more of them are funny.
Yes. Yeah. I find that if you have lots of funny characters, even in some comedy shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the funniest person is sometimes the straight man who doesn't react in the same ways. Because they bring not necessarily balance, but they're not trying to out gag everybody else and make a bigger joke, and so they get sometimes a bigger reaction.
Yes.
So
and there's a danger of one note characters. I mean, God only knows. I'm sure some of mine have ended up one note, which is why you need to, he says, more in sort of aspirational than in terms of like out there. But if you take someone like Lemon from my first series, Lemon exists primarily to be a commentary on what's happening from someone who is there. So rather than having the narrator, the actual narration of the book be try to go, ha, wasn't this funny, and tee. And then the wolves came out, which was so unfair. Instead, you have got someone who is reacting to what is happening, not by going, aha, wolves, quick, everyone get behind me, but by going, oh, fucking hell, wolves, oh, Jesus Christ, not again, I hate wolves. And again, it's a completely overblown, like it's comic proportions, but it's funny because she is reacting to the series of catastrophes and awful events and things, a bit like someone might just going, "This is unbelievable. What are we doing?" And being told off for leaving her post because she's got an upset tummy because she's pretty sure she picked up a parasite from crossing a river, and and you wouldn't want to see the state of her downstairs and blah, and just the sort of gabbling, because again, we know people like that, we've met people or we've encountered, also for some of us, we are people like that. So to put someone like that in a little band of ragtag mercenaries who isn't, if you like, a kind of standard fantasy archetype, but through another sort of twist of the lens is like, oh, you're the dwarf, aren't you? You're the the metalsmith, the little one. You've got red hair. You speak with an outrageous Celtic accent, but you're there to be sort of to lighten the moment when it's all a bit dark, but also when Lemon is then not silly, when Lemon is serious, then shit's getting real, and that is the kind of like. Lemon's not making a joke, we're in trouble. And that gives you tremendous weight to put in a given moment. Whereas if it's just someone like turn to camera, funny line, back and away we go, that will wear thin.
Yeah. So I like first drafts. I don't like editing. That's just how I'm wired. I love the creation process. Where do you sit? Do you plan your books, or do you start with theme, or are you a pantser like RJ, who is in fact a nutter because he just picks a word out of the air and off he goes and writes a trilogy, and the rest of us are going,
the man's a criminal. There's absolutely
no other word for it. Yes, the man is a criminal and criminally insane.
I do plan. I plan a lot, and I have found that. Again, the lessons learned from my early work were planning the broad strokes aren't enough. I need to plan the transitions. Like I really need to know, because what I've ended up, previous sort of stung by previous experience, I have had, they go to here for this scene, for this moment to unlock this thing. And then later they will be in this place where this thing will become important. And then I've reached that point, and there is absolutely no reason for them to go from where they are to the place they need to be.
Right.
Because I know, and that scene, that moment, that thing's going to happen, and there's just this gap, and it's not even necessarily a big gap, but it's absolute like crashing into a brick wall. Because I never really thought about it, and the fact that I'd never thought about it because it was fine, because I knew it would be, you'd have that bit. And then you'd have that bit, and then that bit, and then we get to the end, blah, blah. But without the connective tissue, there was no through line. There was none of the kind of, where's your impetus? And that ultimately comes down to not picking your motivations correctly, for not even having developed them. And this is all stuff that I've learned the hard way on a lot of these things. So the approach that I take now has come a long, long way. I mean, the first time I tried to write anything was 2011, maybe. That's when I've really had a proper first go at, I am going to write a book.
Right.
And that took over a year to get sort of a first draft. And at the end of the thing was 240,000 words long because, but also I didn't know how to do transitions. I didn't know how just you have to write your way all the way around the corner. And then they did this and then they did that. And then they went there and then they did there. And then finally you stumble over. And then one of them said, wouldn't it be a good idea if we went to that place we needed to go to? And the others went, oh, okay. And they went there. And it's, lessons learned, many lessons learned. But I'm planning a new thing at the moment, and I am,
right,
as I alluded to before the call, I am deliberately not writing a damn thing down beyond notes. And a lot of these notes are very high level. They're lines of dialogue. They are snippets of sort of, two characters arguing, point, counterpoint, counterpoint. And they just sort of float. And I know roughly where they would fit in, say, in the case of these two characters' relationship, because they will, at some point, they will meet. And then there will be a phase. Phase 1, we do not know each other well. Phase 2, we know each other pretty well. Phase 3, this is now the terminal phase of our relationship. And some of these things will be early, like, you did what? Some of them will be in the middle of, like, I can't believe you're still blah. And some of them are the thing that you say before you, stab or kiss someone, basically. This is the kind of... So I'm building stuff along those lines. Right. I have the shape of the story I want to tell, but I'm building the world to support the story. And the story is made of the arcs of the characters, where I want to explore a central theme. So yes, I do have a theme, but the theme came from an idea of a character, a kind of character, personality unimportant, but in a given situation. So I wanted a person in a very specific situation, which would give them very specific choices to make. And then working from that, what is then the sort of the thing? What is the central kind of the theme of these choices? And I mean, it's quite, just talking about it all in the abstract makes it all quite weightless. So forgive me in that respect.
It's like you're exploring the trolley problem. You put a character in the trolley problem, and what are they going to do? Are they actually going to, which way are they going to go with it? And then
indeed,
the expected versus the unexpected. And you think, okay, but if the person does the unexpected, what does that kind of person, does that make them?
Exactly that. So imagine if you a character who has been sort of cursed to summon trolleys every time they clap their hands. And then this is a situation that they find themselves in. And then you then extend backwards, like, how did they get into this? So going back in time, how did they arrive at this? What has made them this way? And then what are they doing about it? Are they happy with this situation? Are they looking to change it? How would they change it? And that's where the world starts to come in. It's like, well, in what world will someone summon a trolley when they clap their hands? What do you need to support that? And then what mechanisms might exist to get rid of it? And how easy would that be, or how difficult, and what might be required? And then how would you structure that into a goal, an objective, if assuming that is what they wanted to do? And then, constantly hopping back between sort of story and world. Well, what if you wanted to create some ambiguity over that character's motives? You need another character to come in to observe them. So, hey, presto, you've got a second character who now needs to support that. They need to be a foil, a counterpoint. So if one is young, the other should be old. Or if one is a boy, maybe the other one's a girl. If one is a cat, the other one's a marmoset. All of the classic.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, the standard pairings.
Standard things.
But sometimes you want them to be very similar. The thing you want to avoid is the same voice. They must not have the same voice. Mm-hmm. So when I write those lines of dialogue, sometimes it will be just the sort of the core of it without the specific wording. But sometimes I will write the wording that I want, and I will find the phrase or the saying that represents how one of them speaks. And the other one could just be neutral. The other one can talk, as far as I'm concerned, like a normal person, like me. But one of them needs to have a distinct voice. Yeah. And then once you have the voice, and you have the history, and you have the situation, and you have what the character thinks they want versus what they should want, then you have both your narrative drive and you have your arc. You have the end of the book. This is the end of the story. And I'm saying all of this like, yeah, that's all totally under control. I mean, this is a book that I don't think I'm going to start writing. I'm not going to start writing an outline for, I would guess, another month.
Right.
I say I've got some headings and things, but that's more just place settings. And then I should think I will spend a month outlining it. And then this is at least 6 months to write. And then another, probably 2 months on top, and then revisions. So we're looking like in a year's time, when I'm getting to the end of the first draft, possibly, I might think back to this and think like, oh, I thought I'd worked it all out.
How useful do you find feedback then? Once you spent so I spent, a year, 2 years working on a book in the background, and then 9 months, 12 months writing it. That's like 3 years of time roughly over, and then you get feedback on someone who's taken a month maybe to read it.
Yeah.
How do you respond to initial feedback?
Yeah. Borderline insanity. The thing that I think I have the most trouble with is being told there's a fundamental issue with a book. And I've had this where I submitted, I don't know if it's a manuscript, it might have been an outline, but I sent it in to my editor, and the editor came back with, yeah, I don't think it works. The early part of the book, you've got too many strands, you've got this, you've got that. And I think we might need to look at kind of compressing this, or maybe losing this entire plot thread or that kind of thing. And it was a real like, why are you telling me this now when I have done 6 months of planning and 12 months of writing? Why are you telling me that the outline is wrong, that the structure of this thing is wrong? So in many ways, this thing I'm doing now, I am attempting to front load as much of that as possible by stress testing the story when it is still fairly nebulous. When you can just go, we should add a magic cat. And you can go, okay, there's now a magic cat, and the magic cat appears here and here and here and has this role. And then like, a magic cat's ridiculous, get rid of it. Like, of course, the magic cat's out. And you're doing nothing more than adding a note, removing a note, adding a note, removing a note, because nothing's set in stone yet. But gradually things begin to kind of to accrete and coalesce. And some things which are all very, wouldn't it be cool if the world was the giant sort of hollowed inside of a peach as just an idea? And then more and more, as you work into that, you're like, well, of course, in the peach world, it'll be concave and all the water will just run down the sides. There'll be a lake at the bottom. And then you could set a scene on the edge of the lake. And everything will smell vaguely peachy, which would be quite good. And then suddenly this thing that was just like, has become an integral part of the rest of your planning. And it's, and then it's foundational. So it's, it's much harder at that point to go, the peach idea is ridiculous, get rid of it. It's a bit like a Hollywood executive. But at the same time, it's stood up. It's begun to bear weight, I suppose, to become like a weight bearing part of the outlining process. And I'm lucky in that because, obviously I have to have a day job. I have to, unless you all buy sort of 2.5 million copies of my book each. But I only work 4 days a week, so it gives me a full day of writing. And the funny thing is, at the moment, I am not writing, I am thinking, which is,
well, it's
harder to pin down, but just kicking around, going out on a dog walk or something and just sort of punting ideas backwards and forwards in my head. And whether it's the hollowed out peach, or whether it's, the clap hands for trolley, or whether it's the like, what kind of an arsehole has not pointed their trolley hands at the worst people in society and just gone pow, 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 pow. I'm like, well, what's stopping them? Or why not? And just, let's explore that entire train of thought. And it may just peter out and go, it's not fun. It's not interesting. A lot of the stuff that I'll come up with will be derivative by definition. It will be, oh yeah, there was that thing I saw. That was quite cool. We should have something like that. Like, okay. And with any luck, that will sort of get merged into the whole and turn into something which, in 9 months' time, if you ask me like, oh, that bit where he just walks in the front door of the house and punches 5 people in the mouth, like, where did you get that from? Like, oh, it's just a cool idea I had. It's like, no, you watched an episode of Person of Interest where like, Jim Caviezel does exactly that 6 months ago, and you forgot. Like, the stuff that inspires us. Like, I want a moment like that. I want something. I find a way to support that in the story, but also to show us how the characters react and the characters behave. So this is the part I'm trying with this book to really, really to beat the hell out of the outline before it's even an outline. To test the story, to test the character arcs. Again, in a way I've never really done it before. Like, at the very beginning, how do we see this character? What do we think they want? And then what do we underneath know that they need? And go, right, well, let's set them after their stated obvious guy. And it's just, it's classic, like writing 101, this stuff. But I think this is the first time that I have consciously done it instead of, so with the Hunters, it was a sort of, I know what kind of story I want to tell, and I'll work the motivations out based on the characters and based on the story shape.
Yeah.
Company of the Wolf, the motivations are almost secondary in that Bree and Giovanni are just trying to go to a place, and they hit this place by accident. And their motivation is, well, we just need to move on and get to the place we're going to. But also, we can't really leave this situation. So that is the kind of, they are blocked, if you like. It's a bottle episode in book form. And then for the third book, you have got the big stuff to deal with. But you are bringing the characters all the way back after sort of two chunky books to go. This is the final, the end of the story, the end of the storyline. It's the end, as far as I'm concerned, of that entire world. So there are things that were hinted at the beginning of the Blackhawks, which are getting a little wave on their way out at the end of the Iron Road. Mm-hmm. So, there's a few bookending that kind of thing, and it's just like draw it all to a close. So the motivations in that respect have already, we've got the tracks already laid out, and we are just now taking them to the end. So with this new book,
if you like.
Oh, well, yeah. The metaphor was beneath us all along. But with this new thing, it's genuinely like, we're going to have the open and the close of these stories, like these arcs, these characters, within the context of a single book, because it will be a standalone, and I am going to keep it below 100,000 words.
That's a challenge.
I am.
That's always a challenge.
There are only two things that are going to happen in it.
Drive up the road, turn around, drive back, and pick you. Yeah. That's what it is. Don't forget the back life. Yeah.
Can we have a sequel? We'll have to go back for that container you put cereal in. Yeah. So I hate being told, but it's like when everything has been carved from stone, to have somebody go up and go, that pillar's in the wrong place, because there is a very good chance that they're right. And that's the worst part. Like, it's bad enough to get feedback from someone who's like, I didn't really like it. The characters didn't click for me, where you can just go, oh, fine, well, that's you. Yeah. Clearly your work my work is not for you. You are not my kind of person. But more seriously, like, not everything is for everyone. No. Some things have a broad appeal. Some things have a very specifically laser focused appeal. And people's expectations can often be wildly wrong when they go into a book, and boy, do they like to tell you about it.
People not understanding a book or what its intentions of the author, right? Their own versions and projecting it onto the author and saying that's what we intended all along. I've never heard of such a radical new idea.
It is, consider me an iconoclast for even hinting at it. But
radical.
Sometimes people will read the book, and I don't know, I can't remember who it was who said it, but you can always discount a 1-star review. You can just ignore because it's objectively wrong. But the ones that really hurt are like the 3-star reviews, where they go, "Oh, I see what they were going for, and it was pretty good, but I just felt that the X, the Y, the Z fell a little short, or didn't do this, or didn't do that." And there's a kind of, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but that's only that one person's version and their expectations. The reason I say never read reviews is that some person could say, this book is the slowest one ever. There's loads of talking, loads of conversation. It's just people making jokes and this, that, and the other. Not a lot happens. And then someone else could be like,
Pride and Prejudice is it's just a load of people talking in rooms.
Yeah.
Love it.
But then someone else could say, I love it. It's exactly what I want. Funny, witty. It's like, so a slow book can bore some people and a fast book can bore some people. You can't win, and you can't write a book that does both, and therefore you can't appeal to everybody. So
indeed,
I like, you're never going to win. Even the best 5-star review could be, this book is awesome. It was really deep. It had all these things that it was talking about, and it's two people punching each other in a room for 200 pages. It's not deep. It's just an action bit of popcorn fun. But the opposite is true. You spend 10 years crafting this thing that is a carving of your soul that you've put onto the page. You bled for it, and someone goes, it's all right. Bit of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Bit of fun.
Bit glib. Loved it.
So here's a question, moving away from that. Is there a part of process that you struggle with more than anything else? Like, is it characterization? Is it dialogue? I'm going to guess no. Is it world building? What is it that you get to and you're like, is it required, but I have to do it?
World building varies a lot between finding out cool stuff and looking forward to structuring a book around it. Oh, thanks very much, Toby. So
we just got this is all awesome from Albert Garcia. Well, thanks, Albert. I know we are. We'll just carry on being awesome.
Hey, this, you know.
This.
Unfortunately, a lot of world building just feels like homework, and the number of times that I have spent evening after evening reading up on sort of the esoteric details of, you know, topology of how you farm at altitude in a certain climate with a certain kind of soil. Like, what crops can you grow? How can you construct buildings that would work year round without rotting? And it's like, this stuff matters. It really matters, and you've got to get it right. And you can't just Google it. I mean, especially these days, because, you know, Google's all shit. But it's hard. It's hard work, and it's not writing work. But without it, the books feel thin. They feel unmoored. And I'm still, again, I mean, the book that's out on submission now, I've had a few people just go, some of the parts, like some of the world, feels under described. I think one of my friends, he said it's a bit like there are some loading screens between scenes. You know, you kind of main character's in here, things happen, and then main character moves to the next location, and you describe it in passing, but it's never very detailed or vivid, and it just sort of feels a bit empty. And I thought, it's because I don't want to spend time on that. I want to get to the next bit. And the way my brain, like, I have quite a visual brain, and I will see like rooms or environments. I can imagine, you know, whether it's sort of, it's like the steel mill in RoboCop, and I can picture not the specific thing, but something like it. And, you know, the colors and the smells and, you know, dangling chains, like were there dangling chains in RoboCop, I assume. But that kind of, you know, it's browns and it's grays, and there's a ramp and a big vat of toxic waste. And I will have that, and I will put my character sort of mentally into it. And then it's like, okay, so they leave there and they go over to the thing, and it'd be like they drive down the motorway. Like, well, what's either side of the motorway? Like, I don't know.
They'll go too fast to notice. Just a blur. Just blur of green and blue. That's it.
What do they see when they're approaching the city? City. Just when they get to the thing, and I'm like, clearly, if I were making films, it would just be like establishing exterior shot inside, and then establishing exterior shot inside,
city,
and they just
night. That's it.
And that's it. And that's
kind of, it's your job. You work it out.
One thing that I get really sad about is when you look over the production of these amazing films, and in many cases games now, and you see all the concept art, and you see all the production design, and the prototyping they've done for the props and all the rest of it, and you're like, they have got entire teams of people who can be like, you know, how about this for the industrial look? Ooh, we've gone and we've looked into locations and Like, I just want that. I just want teams of people, so I can be here going
with Pinterest boards of how about this?
And then,
how about this?
And they're in a cool place with like gantries and things. And we're like, how about this? Like, yes, that's perfect, good, but brown. And that just that element of, and I know some people are like, oh yeah, AI can do this for you. Like,
yeah,
the thing that makes it hard is the part where I get it into my brain, and the thing that gets into my brain is the act of researching. Like the number of things that you hit on the way to where you thought you were going, and this is probably some kind of metaphor for storytelling, like the real research was the weird shit you found out along the way when you were trying to find out that particular kind of crop, because ultimately you never mention the crop in the book. However, you do mention the fact that the hut is constructed a certain way, the height of the doorway, the thing that's hanging in it that you put the goat milk in to keep it fermenting evenly, right? And that can become a little plot thing. And then maybe you use that again at the end of the book. And it's like, I had no idea I needed to look for that, but I found it while I was looking for other things. And this is like that's if you sort of the unheralded joys of research, assuming such a thing can exist. I would still love to have teams who can bring me things, but at the same time, this is part of the job, and it's part of the doing it right and doing it well, or well, in terms of, I love having written, but I do also quite enjoy writing.
Right.
And I just, this bit right now is hard because I want to have everything in shape. And deep down, I know that will probably never be true. I will probably never have enough world building detail and like character paths laid out and precise sequence of events that will reveal enough about world, story, and character in a single twist that can then ping us straight to the next one and straight to the next one. And that, because in my head, that's what it will be. That's what my outline will be. And the reality is, no, that we're never going to get to that. But we will get along the way. There will be stuff in my head that at the moment, it's just sort of some floaty ideas. By the time I start writing, without me ever really having thought about it, a lot of that stuff will be solid and structured. And that is when I will set off. And I better hope I'm pointing in the right direction when I do.
Well, yeah. A different approach, I think, is good. Changing up the way you approach a story in a book, I think, is always good. Otherwise, you can get too comfortable, and I think that breeds a boring story, and it's lazy, and you just beget. And then when people say they can accuse an author of phoning it in, I can believe it in some instances because it feels too familiar to other things. And it's that thing of you want something the same but different. But equally, people say, I want the same thing. Like, you don't actually want the same thing. Because then you'll read it again and go, well, it's like the other one. There's nothing interesting. So
it's right in the first idea. Like the first idea is always going to be the most obvious one to you. Now, again, our brains are all different. And for some people, the obvious thing, again, if you're RJ Barker, what's obvious to him is not going to be obvious to anyone else. But for those of us who are sitting slightly more mainstream end of things, if my brain's going, oh, yeah, cool, magic cat, it's probably because I've seen 10,000 magic cats and the magic cat is what feels right for this. Yeah. So you go, okay, but is it really a magic cat? Is it time to get the marmoset back out? Are there other things you can do here? What twist can you put on it? Why take the first idea when you've got time to go out and actually sort of poke at it and go, well, what, you think of a magic cat and it's probably like one of the grinning ones, or it's one, it's a bit sarcastic, and like, sarcastic cat, we've done this. What different personality can you put on it? What role is this going to serve? Again, I'm going down the magic cat and the hollow peach with the guy that's summoning trolleys. Like, this is gold.
So here's a slightly related question. We're now just moving into talking writing. Would you ever want to write a story based upon a very familiar trope, like The Chosen One? Like if someone said, here's some money, go and write a standalone fantasy book. The trope you have to work within, somewhere within the realm, is the Chosen One trope. Would you actually want to do it for the challenge of, something different, or I'm so sick of it, even I can't come up with something?
Well, so in some ways, that's the challenge I set myself with the Blackhawks originally, not the Chosen One necessarily, but I wanted to take the shape of classic quest fantasy and just like twist it inside out, evaginate it, to use a term. So the idea is that, you have the young farm boy who gets swept up in events, dark conspiracy, finds himself with a ragtag bunch of misfits, has a grizzled mentor character who shows him the truth of the world. He learns to fight. he faces his great enemy at the end and saves the kingdom. And obviously they have to travel a journey. They have to go a very, very long way, and survive the perils of magic and monsters. And there's probably a magic sword. So that was the structure that I had in my head, going back to all of the stuff that I read as a kid. And that was why I was determined to go like not farm boy, but actually kind of upper middle class kid. So he's too elevated in status to be taken seriously by all the normal people, but he's too much of a dunghill for any of the nobles to like him. So he's just a rank outsider who is still treated with suspicion for his privilege. And also, he's not the chosen one, but he's next to the chosen one. And also, the ragtag misfits he meets are not noble heroes out to save the world. They're just a bunch of fuck-ups. And the grizzled mentor character isn't really sure about anything himself anyway, and they really don't get on. And at the end, spoiler alert, they do not save the kingdom. So that, if you like, was a sort of a bucket full of tropes that I was attempting to sort of kick over one by one. I mean, if somebody wanted to pay me to write a short 60,000 word novella or something, and say, right, these 11 tropes you have to put in it, I think I would enjoy the challenge of it, assuming I didn't have anything else that I wanted to write more right then.
Yeah.
Who am I to turn my nose up at publishing money?
It's the thing of, if someone asks you to write a character within world, like work for hire, and you're familiar with the world, you don't have to do the research. That, I think, that can present opportunities. Like someone said, contribute a story to this anthology, and you go, okay, what's the theme? Whatever you like. That's a nightmare for me. I'm like, no. You have to give me something to work with.
Yeah,
then
give me a constraint, because exactly. You need a kind of a kernel, like the little bit of grit that the oyster forms the pearl around. Like you need that hook or whatever the hell. Some. But like we're doing an anthology about the evil socks, or socks that don't do what you expect. I'm like, oh Jesus! But then, what do you expect of a sock? And so, what might one do that you don't expect? And all bets are off.
All stocks, got to be different. All the stories have to be different in the anthology. So therefore, you've got to find the next twist on the.
Well, exactly that. Going past the first idea, it's like, did they get lost in the wash? Whoa, like, but maybe they're not being lost. Maybe they're being summoned.
You see, I've given you a framework, and then already your brain can go off into unusual directions.
But this is the mode you want to be in for this kind of thing, and bing, and then afterwards you go, right, all of that was shit. However, there is something in here which maybe we can work with. Again, like this is a decade, more than 15 years almost of trying to do this, and I've at least arrived at a place where I know a bit of terminology, and I know a little bit of cause and effect, and I know a little bit of, if I do this might help in future, versus if I try to do this, I probably won't actually get anywhere. What works for me, what doesn't. And actually kind of not writing, even though I feel I should be, is quite a thing for me. I should hit my keyboard and should be smashing stuff out. Well, I feel I've achieved more in the last 3 days of wandering around staring into space than I did just sort of staring at a blank screen with a cursor flashing, I should be taking notes and be writing some stuff down.
Yeah.
Of course, if I forget it all again, then I will feel stupid.
Well, it's the time of forcing myself not to write whilst my brain percolates and works stuff out, so that when I sit down, it works a lot easier than relentlessly hammering my head against the keyboard to produce the words.
Well, you want the orthogonal stuff. You want to have it present in the back of your head. I'll start reading a book and I'll get a paragraph in and it'll kick off a thought because it's there. And then like the book goes unread for the next 10 minutes while I stare off into space. But like that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't started reading.
My agent challenged me the other day. She said something like, "Oh, you should write a crime novel at some point." I went, yeah. 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with the rest of the idea that had been percolating for the last 2 years and wrote down all the notes till 4 a.m. and I went back to bed. And I emailed the next morning and was like, "You said you did this. You did this." So at some point, I'm writing a straight crime novel, by the way. So
outstanding. Yeah, I look forward to that.
No weird stuff. Imagine that. No genre. None. I mean, what's that? What kind of a book?
Tell me about the world it's set in. Well, it's a shared universe.
Bosch is in it, and
Yep.
Ballard, and
yeah, a lot of familiar places.
Very strange people. Yeah. So last question: are you able to turn off that part of your brain and still read fantasy? Because I know some authors go, it's too much like a busman's holiday, or I just can't read other fantasy, so they read biography, non-fiction, history, whatever. So
I think I do still read fantasy. I mean, I still have lots of fantasy books I want to read, and part of it, I think that there is a bit of a duty to stay current and to read what other people are doing, at least so you can go, oh, I didn't know you could do that, or that's quite impressive, or I wouldn't have done it that way. And then I think the thing that sort of takes me out of enjoyment is, I know a lot of people say, like, oh, I'm so focused on the craft, so if I'm reading and a certain thing happens, I'll immediately be second guessing it, and I'll be going, well, that's clearly going to happen, and it robs the story of its narrative attention. I'm like, I like that with TV. I will be going like, well, the only reason they've included that line, it's the guest star, for God's sake. But the only reason for that line of dialogue being present is to mention this thing, which means we're going there later, or it means that will be, it's Chekhov's line of dialogue. So I'll do that in TV, and I'll always be trying to second guess the plot, but also, in the nicest possible way, I try to watch good TV. I try. And so a lot of it just has me going like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Oh. With books, because I am quite sort of particular about the way I write, it means I can get a bit like pedantic about sentence structure and words choice and things. Now, most of the books that I read are absolutely fine, but if I'm reading something that has me going like, oh, I wouldn't have done that, oh, I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't have ended that sentence on an unstressed syllable, yeah, no, you could have swapped that around, like that does get in the way. And whether I mean that's fantasy or crime or history or anything, but then a lot of the stuff I've been reading recently has been like Regency or Victorian fiction, so I'm in no position at all to criticize this. If you're reading a Patrick O'Brien book and you're getting past all the misanthropes and the stastels and all, and then getting to the end of like, well, I don't know what any of that meant, but it felt wonderful.
Thankfully, I'm still able to enjoy fantasy because I was a fantasy reader long before I was an author, and I'd hate to have lost that joy. Like, I know some people don't read a lot of fantasy, but they write it. And I get that too, but I'm like you. I think I prefer to stay up to date. I also still love fantasy, so I'm glad I'm able to turn off that analytical part of my brain.
Fantasy is such a wide gamut as well. Like, more than anything, as we've seen in the last 15 years, it's not just guys waving swords, tackling monsters anymore. Although, Witcher notwithstanding, but even that's
a cheat code to write any kind of story as long as you do it with its certain parameters. I stand by that because I've done all sorts. I've done crime novels, war stories, post-apocalyptic zombie, cosmic horror novels, all within fantasy. And as long as you put certain things in, people go, okay, right, let's see how this goes. You're okay with that.
Our bloke's a wizard. Oh, great. Anyway, tell us about the zombies.
That's it. Like, you carry on, you go, fair play.
We don't use the word zombie.
No, we'll give them the unliving. We can make this person unalive, apparently.
Yep, we unalived them and they didn't take it well.
Yeah. So on that undead bombshell, we should say that if you want to read Dave's first series with the Articles of Faith, which is the Blackhawks and The Righteous, you can pick them up in all good bookshops and from the Broken Binding main website. You can get it from the main website. And of course, Tales of the Plains is now on general sale on the special edition website. There's a link down below to that, which starts with the Hunters, and then there's Company and Wolf, and then the Iron Road, and the trilogy is done. Dave will be signing the books shortly, and they'll be shipping in the next couple of months. So thanks for tuning in tonight, everyone. Thanks for asking your questions, and check out Dave's books, and we'll be back later this next week with another interview and more coming later this month. So goodbye, everyone, and good night.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.